I never thought my own neighborhood, the place I'd called home for over a decade, would turn into a battlefield where my brother and I, two black twins who'd served our country with honor, would have to defend ourselves against a group of fake HOA cops drunk on their imagined authority. But that's exactly what happened when these self-appointed enforcers showed up at our door, badges flashing like cheap knockoffs, threatening us over a simple backyard renovation that didn't fit their narrow vision of suburban perfection. Little did they know, I was a police captain with years of experience spotting frauds, and my twin brother was a retired Navy SEAL commander who'd faced down real threats in far more dangerous places than this gated community. What started as petty harassment escalated into a full-blown confrontation that ended with arrests, lawsuits, and the complete dismantling of their bogus operation, proving that sometimes the people you underestimate the most are the ones who can bring your whole house of cards tumbling down. It all began on a crisp autumn morning in our quiet suburb outside Atlanta, where the houses sat in neat rows like soldiers on parade, each lawn manicured to within an inch of its life under the watchful eye of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. My name is Marcus Johnson, and alongside my identical twin, Malik, we'd bought our place here after pooling our savings from our respective careers. Me climbing the ranks in the Atlanta PD, him commanding elite teams in the SEALs before retiring to civilian life. We were in our mid-40s now, both single, no kids, just two brothers enjoying the peace we'd earned after years of high-stakes service. Our home was our sanctuary, a modest two-story with a spacious backyard where we'd recently decided to install a custom deck and a small garden shed. Nothing extravagant, just a place to grill and unwind, but we'd made sure to get all the proper permits from the city, knowing how HOAs could be sticklers for rules. The trouble started subtly at first, with passive-aggressive notes left in our mailbox about maintaining community standards and vague references to our project being an eyesore. We ignored them, figuring it was just the usual neighborhood nitpicking. But then the fines arrived. $100 penalties for unauthorized modifications, slapped on us without any prior warning or appeal process. Malik, ever the strategist, suggested we attend the next HOA meeting to clear things up. But I had a hunch this was more personal than procedural. We'd heard whispers about the board president, a woman named Karen Whitaker. Yes, her name was actually Karen, who ruled the association like her personal fiefdom. She was in her late 50s, impeccably dressed in pastel cardigans and pearls, with a perm that screamed, "I want to speak to the manager." Rumors swirled that she targeted newcomers, especially those who didn't fit her cookie-cutter ideal of what residents should look like. As black men in a predominantly white enclave, we weren't blind to the undertones. We'd faced enough subtle racism in our lives to recognize it when it reared its head. Still, we approached it professionally. At the meeting, held in the community clubhouse that smelled of stale coffee and mothballs, we presented our permits and photos of the ongoing work. Karen sat at the head of the table, flanked by her cronies, a retired accountant named Bob and a homemaker called Susan, who nodded along like bobbleheads. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice dripping with condescension as she adjusted her glasses, "while your city permits might be in order, our covenants supersede them. That shed is far too close to the property line, and the deck's design clashes with the aesthetic guidelines." Malik leaned forward, his voice calm but firm, the same tone he'd used to brief teams before missions. "Ma'am, we've measured it precisely. It's 3 feet from the line, well within regs. And the guidelines you mention? We reviewed the bylaws. There's no specific clause on deck designs." Her lips pursed into a thin line, and I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. "Well, perhaps you missed the amendments from last year. We'll be issuing another fine, and if it's not rectified, we'll have to escalate." Escalate how? I wondered, but we left without pushing further, not wanting to stir the pot unnecessarily. Over the next few weeks, the harassment ramped up. Our mailbox was stuffed with daily citations, fines for grass that's too long one day. It was freshly mowed. Then for excessive noise from construction that wrapped by 5 p.m. One evening, as I pulled into the driveway after a long shift policing real crimes, I found a tow truck hooking up Malik's truck, claiming it was parked illegally on our own street. A quick call to dispatch confirmed it was bogus, but the driver slunk away muttering about HOA orders. Malik, who'd been inside reviewing blueprints, came out fuming. "This is getting ridiculous, bro. They're treating us like criminals in our own home." I nodded, feeling the familiar burn of injustice I'd seen too many times on the job. "Let's document everything. Photos, dates, copies of fines. If they want to play games, we'll play smart." We started a file, snapping pics of every notice and emailing the board for clarifications that never came. Then came the inspections. Karen and her crew began showing up unannounced, peering over our fence with clipboards, jotting notes like they owned the place. One afternoon, while I was at the precinct, Malik texted me, "They're in the backyard, claiming right of entry." I raced home, heart pounding, to find Karen and Bob measuring our shed with a tape measure, Susan snapping photos on her phone. Malik stood there, arms crossed, his SEAL training keeping him composed despite the intrusion. "This is private property," he said evenly. "You need to leave." Karen waved a paper. "Our covenants allow inspections for compliance. You're in violation, and we're gathering evidence." I arrived just in time, badge in hand but off duty. "Evidence for what?" "This is trespassing," she smirked. "We're authorized by the board. If you have an issue, take it up at the next meeting." They left, but the violation stung. Our space invaded, our privacy dismissed. We lawyered up quietly, consulting a friend in real estate law who confirmed their inspections were overreaches. But we held our fire, waiting for them to dig deeper. The escalation hit its peak one sweltering Saturday when we were hosting a small barbecue for old service buddies. Laughter filled the air. The grill sizzled with ribs and burgers, and for a moment, the HOA drama faded. Then, sirens blared, fake ones as it turned out. 2 SUVs pulled up, lights flashing from cheap Amazon kits, and out stepped 3 men in ill-fitting uniforms emblazoned with HOA security enforcement. They weren't real cops. I could spot the fakes a mile away. No standard issue gear, badges that looked printed from a home office, and holsters that screamed costume shop. The leader, a burly guy with a mustache that didn't match his dye job, barked, "This gathering is in violation of noise ordinances. Disperse now, or face citations." Our guests froze, but Malik and I exchanged a glance. We'd prepared for something like this. "On whose authority?" I asked, stepping forward. Mustache Man puffed up. "Willow Creek HOA. We're empowered to enforce community rules." He flashed a badge that read Deputy Enforcer, which wasn't a real title anywhere. His backups loomed, one fingering a pepper spray canister, the other radioing nonsense into a walkie-talkie. Karen emerged from one of the SUVs, arms folded, a triumphant gleam in her eye. "These gentlemen are here to ensure compliance. Your party is disturbing the peace, and we've had complaints." Complaints from whom? The street was empty. Our buddies, a mix of vets and officers, murmured uneasily, but we signaled them to stay put. Malik, his commander voice kicking in, said, "This is private property. You're impersonating officers, which is a felony." Mustache Man laughed. "We're licensed security. Now, shut it down, or we'll have to remove you." He advanced, hand on his weapon, and that's when it crossed the line. They grabbed Malik's arm, twisting it as if to cuff him, while the other shoved me back, shouting threats of arrest for resisting. The air thickened with tension, our guests pulling out phones to record, and I realized this wasn't just harassment anymore. It was assault under color of false authority. And as they forced us toward the SUVs, Karen watching with smug satisfaction. I knew we had them right where we wanted. But in that moment, with hands on us and fake badges gleaming, the real danger hit home. The moment those fake HOA cops laid hands on Malik, twisting his arm like they had any right, my training kicked in. Not just as a police captain, but as a brother protecting his own. I could see the fury in Malik's eyes, but his SEAL discipline held firm, his body tense but controlled, as he let them think they had the upper hand. I stepped back, palms raised, playing the compliant role while scanning every detail. Their fake badges, the unregistered SUVs with those tacky flashing lights, and Karen Whitaker standing there, her smug grin practically glowing in the dusk. Our guests, a mix of seasoned vets and off-duty officers, were already filming, their phones capturing every second of this absurd power trip. I caught Malik's glance, a silent agreement we'd drilled into each other since childhood. Play the long game, let them overplay their hand. All right, I said, voice calm but loud enough for the cameras. Let's all relax here. You're saying we're under arrest? Mustache man, who'd introduced himself as Officer Daniels, despite no such rank existing, puffed out his chest. You're detained for violating HOA ordinances and resisting enforcement. I almost laughed at the audacity. Detained for a backyard barbecue? But I kept my cool, knowing every word was being recorded. Can you show me your credentials again? I asked, gesturing to his badge. He hesitated, then flashed it quickly. But not before I noted the flimsy plastic and misspelled enforcement. Malik, still in their grip, added, "And where's your warrant or legal authority to touch us?" The second guy, a lanky wannabe with a patchy beard, faltered, looking to Karen for backup. She stepped forward, clutching her clipboard like a shield. Our covenants grant us the right to enforce community standards. You've been warned repeatedly about your violations. I nodded slowly, locking eyes with her. So you hired these guys to impersonate law enforcement and assault us on our own property? Her face twitched, but she doubled down. They're licensed security, and you're the ones causing a disturbance. That was their fatal mistake, doubling down on a lie in front of witnesses, cameras, and two men who knew exactly how to dismantle a scam. I signaled to our friend James, a former JAG officer now grilling in the corner, who was already dialing a contact at the precinct. "Let's see those licenses," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Daniel scoffed, but the third guy, clearly the weakest link, started sweating, his hand hovering over his fake radio. Before they could respond, Malik twisted free with a fluid move only a SEAL could pull off, stepping back to my side. "You're not cops," he said, voice low and commanding, "and you're on thin ice." The air crackled with tension, our guests forming a loose circle, phones still rolling. Karen's confidence wavered as she realized the optics weren't in her favor. Then, real sirens cut through the evening. Two patrol cars from my precinct, lights blazing, screeched to a halt. Officers Lopez and Carter, guys I'd trained myself, stepped out, hands on their holsters. "What's going on here, Captain?" Lopez asked, eyeing the fake cops. I pointed to Daniels and his crew. "These individuals are impersonating law enforcement, assaulting residents and trespassing. I want them detained." The look on Karen's face was priceless. Her jaw dropped as Daniels stammered, "We're HOA security!" Carter wasn't having it. He checked their IDs and badges, shaking his head. "These are fake. You're under arrest for impersonation and assault." As cuffs clicked onto Daniels and his crew, Karen tried to bolt to her SUV, but Malik blocked her path, not touching her, but standing firm. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "You orchestrated this." The officers took her statement, but she was already unraveling, babbling about community standards and misunderstandings. Our lawyer friend, Sarah, who'd been quietly observing, stepped in with a copy of the HOA bylaws and our permits. "These men have every right to their property and activities," she said. Your actions violate state law on trespass and false representation." The crowd of neighbors, drawn by the sirens, started murmuring, some pulling out their own phones to record Karen's downfall. Over the next few days, we built an airtight case. Malik and I combed through our documentation, photos of every fine video of the backyard intrusion, and now footage of the fake cops stunt. James connected us with a prosecutor who was thrilled to take down a corrupt HOA. Turns out, Karen had been skimming dues to fund her security team, a group of ex-cons she'd hired through a shady contact, promising them easy money to play dress-up. The licenses they claimed were non-existent, and their company wasn't even registered. We filed a civil suit against the HOA for harassment, trespass, and emotional distress, while the DA pressed criminal charges against Karen and her fake cops for impersonation, assault, and conspiracy. The community rallied behind us, fed up with years of Karen's tyranny. At the HOA's emergency meeting, packed with angry residents, we presented our evidence, projected on a big screen for maximum impact. The room erupted as neighbors shared their own stories of fines and intimidation. Karen tried to defend herself, but her excuses crumbled when Malik played the video of her smirking as her goons manhandled us. By the end, the board voted unanimously to dissolve the current HOA leadership and call for new elections. Karen was removed, her reputation in tatters, and the fake cops pleaded guilty, facing jail time. Our lawsuit settled for a hefty sum, enough to finish our deck, and then some. But the real victory was the peace we reclaimed. The new HOA board, led by a neighbor who'd witnessed the barbecue fiasco, rewrote the bylaws to limit overreach, and we hosted another cookout, this time with half the neighborhood, celebrating under the stars on our fully permitted deck. Malik raised a glass, his grin wide, to freedom, and to never letting a Karen run the show again. As the laughter echoed, I felt the weight of the past months lift, replaced by the warmth of community and justice. We'd turned their game against them, using their own arrogance to topple their empire. It wasn't just revenge, it was a reminder that no one, not even a self-styled HOA queen, could push us out of our own home. What would you have done? Share your own HOA stories in the comments below.